On this date, perfection happened. What do I mean? On the other side. Cole Sports presents on the daily. Glad you could join me, VIP. Cole Johnson's live and in living color on the daily on tap, presented by Cole Sports. And if you haven't done so already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Get all of the new content that comes from this channel, and especially from this show, every Monday through Friday. So be in the know whether you're in your house, your workplace, your carpool. I don't know if they do that now, considering the pandemic. Who knows? Your church or anywhere else you congregate amongst people. That's right, on the daily, every Monday through Friday. So it's Thursday, right? And you know this Throwback Thursday. You know how we get down on Throwback Thursday. We spare no expense in terms of going back in time. And it happens to be on this date, back in 1973, that a team that normally pops champagne every time the last unbeaten team in the NFL notches their first loss of the season. So this past season, it would have been early December that the members of this team popped the bubbly. And who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the 1972 Dolphins. And more importantly, it was on this date back in 1973, where history was made. And that history was a goose egg in a certain column. That is this episode's an edition of January 14th, 1973. All right, let me set the stage and scene for you. Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum is the place. The teams that were there would be the Miami Dolphins. They were cloaked in white. And the Washington NFL franchise, they were known by a dirty slur that I will never utter, no matter how long I'm on this earth, or anyone who takes this mic on my behalf won't ever utter that slur either. They were cloaked in red and I'm not burgundy, and if I'm not mistaken, I think they had not white, gold pants, I believe. It was an interesting time of period, I should say, in the terms of the development of the NFL. They were slowly getting their footing. They were slowly building their momentum. They decided to, in the last decade, have the battle between the AFL and the NFL in this big game. They didn't even know what to call it. They eventually settled on the name Super Bowl. And by this time, in 1973, it was settled that it was a Super Bowl. And it was the seventh one that they were putting together. Now, the LA Memorial Coliseum's held it before. The very first one was held there. So the site's familiar and the game is familiar. The game also is taking on a bigger significance. Oh, yeah, and that AFL NFL thing, well, the league now is in its third year of being together, one family. It's not AFL and NFL anymore. It's AFC and NFC under the NFL umbrella. And so you had an old NFL team in the Washington NFL franchise, and you had almost a brand spanking new AFL team because they were in existence in 1968 in the Dolphins. So the Dolphins weren't even in the league 10 years before they even taste their first Super Bowl trip. In fact, I'll even go a little further with the Dolphins. So the tale begins with the coach Don Shula. Now he was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts, and he John Facenda said it best. Shula's style was as subtle as a punch. I mean, he grinded teams into the dirt, and the Colts front office wasn't really digging Shula, and a lot of the players weren't digging Shula. Part of it, though, was Shula was just as old as the veterans on the team were. So you had a little friction there. And then you had the tension between Shula and the all-time Baltimore Colt legend, Johnny Unitas. Shula didn't want to play him. He played Earl Morrow in his place. And that landmark 1968 season where the Colts just steamrolled everybody in the NFL, they were a monster favorite in Super Bowl III, going up against the happy-go-lucky, youthful, exuberant, and in terms of the quarterback of the Jets, Joe Namath, brash and confident and cocky New York Jets squad. Well, the 14-point favorites lost by 9, 16-7. The Colts played their worst game that year, and many of the guys who played on the 1968 team, when they won the Super Bowl 2 years later, the words they used were relieved, not jubilant, not happy, not exuberant, relieved, because they felt as though the 1968 team let that one get away. That Super Bowl III was the prize that they should have gotten and didn't. And Super Bowl V is nothing more than the consolation prize for them. But by the time the Colts won that Super Bowl, Shula was no longer on that team. The Dolphins bought out, and I really do mean bought out, Shula's rights to be the coach of the Colts and went to the Dolphins, where he promptly started to build the team in his image. No, not the team that you remember with Dan Marino throwing all over the place in the 80s. No. That's not the team that Shula had in the 1970s. No, it was a smash mouth, hard nosed, we are in your face, we're going to dominate you at every single turn type of team. Think like the 2000 Ravens, sort of like that style, right? So he did take that team the very next year that he got on board with the Dolphins, because he got on board in 1970. The next year he took it to the Super Bowl. They just weren't ready for the Cowboys, and they just steamrolled all over them. But the 1971 team, it is noted, though, for the divisional round game they played in Kansas City for 2 reasons. One, it was the last game that the Chiefs ever played in their old Memorial Stadium before they played in their new home, which is Arrowhead Stadium. That was being built at the time. And of course, they moved into that 9 months later. And it was the longest game ever played. That game went into 2 overtimes. And it was, I think, 82 game minutes of action before it was over. So this 1971 bunch was the same as the 1972 bunch. It was led by the quarterback Bob Griese. It was buoyed by wide receiver slash H-back Mercury Morris. The heavy hitter was Fred Warfield. The defense, which was led by the linebacker Nick Buoniconti, the defensive, I don't know why my brain wanted to say back, but defensive lineman, Manny Fernandez, and the defensive back or safety, Jake Scott, they were more famously known as the no-name defense. Oh, then I forgot. Butch Cassidy and Sundance. No, not the movie. I'm talking about the backfield for the Dolphins. Jim Kick for the running back or halfback, and Larry Csonka as the fullback. And Csonka got more of the carries as a fullback. Think think a taller version or a lankier version of a Mike Allstott. You have Larry Csonka. So you had battering rams basically all throughout. And so they get to the Super Bowl by squeezing by the Browns in the divisional round, 20-14. And then they outlast the Steelers in the AFC Championship game. And that game was not hosted in Miami. It was hosted in Pittsburgh, 21-17. And so this team takes a 16-0 record. Yes, 16-0 to Los Angeles. And they meet the Washington NFL franchise, helmed by veteran head coach George Allen. Now, he was the coach of the Rams. He eventually became the coach of the Rams again. He coached the Rams in the second half of the 1960s. He became the head coach of the team in 1971 after the unfortunate passing of Vince Lombardi the year prior. So the team makes it to the playoffs for the first time in 26 years. 1945 was the last time Washington made it to the playoffs until 1971. So they meet up against the 49ers in Candlestick. They lose to them 24-20. And Allen resolves to build the team in the way that he wanted to build them. And so you had, I guess you could say the best way you can describe it is the quarterbacks they had. The legend, Sonny Jurgensen, and the not so much a legend, but just a wee bit younger, but not so much younger, Billy Kilmer. And they led this ragtag bunch. It was scant of rookies or young players. It was a lot of veterans. And they were affectionately known as the Over the Hill Gang. And they went 11-3 in 1972. And they steamrolled through the Packers in the divisional round. And then they pimp slapped the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. And this game is also noted for when the Cowboys and the rivalry became what we know of it today, especially what we knew of it in the 80s, where it was bad blood and hostility, because Allen would publicly and privately say to his team, we must beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys suck. They just simply do not measure up. They think they're pretty boys. We need to smack them in the mouth and bury them. We didn't really start to hear that about the Cowboys coming from Washington until Allen, and definitely until this year, this particular year. So the scene is set and the stage is set, and the two teams come on the field, and it was the game that you expected. It was hard hitting. It was no nonsense. It was going to be the team that was more physical was going to win. And Washington only allowed 14 points to be scored by the Dolphins. But the thing is, the no-name defense shut out Washington's offense. Now, the game didn't end in a shutout, because the most memorable part of that game was when, in the fourth quarter, the Dolphins lined up to kick a field goal to go up 17-7. The snap was botched. The kicker, Garo Upremian, reaches down, picks up the ball. He runs to the right. He's looking to throw. And when he throws, he lets go of the ball before his arm goes forward. And so what happens? The ball leaves him. It hits his shoulder pad. It bounces up in the air. He tries to grab it. He doesn't. And a Washington NFL franchise player takes it and runs it all the way to the house. So the final score of that game was 14-7. But even with that mistake, as Jake Scott was the MVP of that game, it was well known that it was an accomplishment that people didn't think was going to ever happen. It did. And now we will always think of the Dolphins as the first, and so far to this date, only team to go undefeated in an NFL season, going 17-0. And they completed that on this date in 1973. Now, if you want this shirt you see right before your very eyes, the description box below has all the details as to how to get this shirt. Now, what memorable time or action or event that you can remember from the 1972 season in NFL, or even the 1972 season for the Dolphins, or even the Washington NFL franchise? You history buffs, let me know. Like this, comment, and share throughout your social media. Comment below because I want to hear what you have to say. And don't forget, hit the notification bell and subscribe to this channel for any and all content that emanates from here. Well, thank you so much, VIP, for joining me. As always, I love you. I love you. For all of us here at Cole Sports, this is Cole Johnson, and this also has been yet another installment of Cole Sports on the visual and on the tape.